Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Here, we explore the power of discipline, respect, and strength, both physical and mental. On this channel, we dive into real stories of everyday heroes, wisdom, and the kind of courage that makes a difference in the world. Whether it's through overcoming challenges, self-defense, or inspiring others to find their inner strength, we're all about the lessons that shape us. If you've ever felt like life was testing you, or you've been in a situation where you had to stand your ground, you're in the right place. Grab your seat, because this is where the journey of self-discovery and empowerment begins. It was just another quiet afternoon at the Cozy Bistro, a small, family-owned restaurant tucked away in the corner of the city. The warm aroma of fresh pizza and baked bread mingled in the air, and the gentle hum of lunchtime chatter filled the space. The low clink of silverware against plates and the quiet murmur of customers created an unassuming atmosphere that made it the perfect spot for a break. At a table near the back, sitting alone, was Vanessa King. She was a martial arts instructor, strong, disciplined, and calm, but not a person you'd want to underestimate. Her muscles were toned from years of training, but she wore a peaceful expression, her focus completely on the book in her hands. Vanessa was tall, with striking features and a quiet, dignified presence. Her natural beauty was accented by the softness of her dark skin and the cool composure she wore like a second skin. She had just wrapped up a session at the local dojo and was grabbing a quick lunch on her break, savoring the comfort of a simple margarita pizza and iced tea. The day had been full of high-energy classes and intense practice, but here, in the quiet of the bistro, she allowed herself to unwind. Across the room, a group of 3 men, mid-30s and dressed casually, sat at a table, their pizza and cold drinks in front of them. They were laughing a little too loudly, exchanging looks and leaning in close as if they were plotting something. Their body language suggested they weren't just enjoying a peaceful lunch. They had an agenda. The way they looked around, the way they paused to watch people pass by, it wasn't a sense of curiosity, it was predatory. One of them, a man with messy, light brown hair and a scruffy beard, kept glancing toward Vanessa. At first, it was just a casual glance. But as the seconds passed, his gaze grew more intent, more focused, as if testing the waters to see if she'd notice him staring. Vanessa's gaze remained on her book. She was aware of him, but she wouldn't give him the satisfaction of acknowledging his stare. She'd seen enough of this behavior in her life to know that some men only acted out of a need to dominate or intimidate. She wasn't interested in engaging. But the man wasn't deterred. He shifted in his chair, trying to adjust his position so that he was directly in her line of sight. She could feel his eyes on her, but still, she didn't flinch. Instead, she took a slow sip of her iced tea, her movements measured, controlled, calm. Minutes passed. The man's frustration was building, and he finally couldn't take it anymore. He stood up from his seat and walked over to her table, leaning slightly forward as if to catch her attention. "Hey," he said, his voice carrying a forced, casual tone. "I'm Mac." Vanessa didn't look up. She simply continued to sip her tea, the book in her hands a barrier between them.
Max cleared his throat, sensing the coldness in her lack of response. "You know, I've been sitting over there and couldn't help but notice you. You're pretty intimidating. In a good way." Vanessa gave him nothing but silence, a soft exhale escaping her lips as she turned a page in her book. She wasn't about to engage with a man who thought his presence alone was enough to demand attention. Max, however, wasn't used to being ignored. His face darkened, a hint of annoyance creeping into his expression. He glanced over at his friends, who were watching the scene unfold with amusement. Encouraged by the lack of response, he took a step closer to her table and the others followed suit, each one now standing behind him like backup for whatever game he was about to play. "You're dismissing my friend?" Max asked with a sneer. "You know, wherever we go, we command respect. You don't just ignore us." Vanessa's eyes flickered toward him for the first time, her gaze cold, unwavering. "Respect isn't something you can demand," she said calmly. "It's something you earn. By how you carry yourself. By how you treat others." Her words were sharp but quiet, cutting through the tension in the air like a blade through silk. Max didn't like being talked down to, not one bit. His face reddened as his friends circled closer, their presence now looming over her. One of the men, a stocky guy with short-cropped hair, took a step forward. "Listen," he said, his tone far less friendly now. "You're not going to act like that in front of us. We've been more than patient." Vanessa sighed, standing up slowly from her seat, her movements deliberate and controlled. She wasn't interested in further conflict, but she wasn't going to back down either. "I think it's time I leave." But as she turned toward the aisle, one of the men, Vex, still emboldened, extended his foot and purposefully tripped her. She hit the ground hard, but it wasn't the fall that mattered. It was the immediate shift in her body. In the blink of an eye, she was up and on her feet. Her muscles tensed, her focus razor-sharp. There was no hesitation. Just instinct. Max tried to regain his balance, but Vanessa was already moving. Her leg shot out in a fluid, powerful motion, an expert flying kick that caught him square in the chest. The force of the blow sent him stumbling backward, crashing into his chair with a loud thud. The two other men stepped forward, their faces twisted in anger and disbelief. The one with the stocky build rushed at her, thinking he could overpower her with brute force. He grabbed her around the waist, attempting to trap her. But Vanessa was quicker. With a sudden shift of her weight, she broke free, spinning out of his grasp with a grace that only years of martial arts training could create. Her hands moved like lightning, striking with precision. A quick jab to his ribs, a twist of his arm that left him unable to retaliate. She was a whirlwind, each movement fluid, each strike controlled, each breath in perfect rhythm with the next. The third man, seeing his friend struggle and clearly realizing this wasn't the fight he wanted, took a step back. His eyes widened, and his fear was palpable. He wasn't going to be the next victim. Vanessa took one final step toward him, her eyes locking onto his with a quiet intensity. "Leave. Before this gets worse for you." The man didn't need any more convincing. He turned and bolted for the door, his friends still trying to recover from the shock of what had just happened. Max and the stocky man remained on the floor, stunned, disoriented. Vanessa didn't spare them another glance. She straightened her clothes, adjusted her belt, and calmly walked toward the door. As she stepped out of the bistro and into the afternoon sun, she felt the calm return to her, the weight of the encounter already fading into the past. But inside, she knew that her message had been clear. Respect wasn't something to be demanded or expected. It had to be earned through strength, discipline, and kindness. And no one was going to take that from her. Vanessa smiled to herself, the quiet warrior, always ready to stand her ground. The dojo was buzzing with energy when Vanessa walked through the door. Her students, some in their late teens and others in their early 20s, paused mid-punch and kicked to stare in her direction. Vanessa's presence was usually a quiet one. Her calm demeanor and measured steps spoke more than her words ever could, but today there was a different kind of energy radiating from her. As she entered, the students and instructors alike started clapping, slowly at first, then with growing enthusiasm. The sound of applause echoed through the training space. Vanessa, one of her students, a young man named Jamal, called out, "That was incredible today. I saw the whole thing online. You handled those guys like a pro." She couldn't help but smile softly as she nodded in acknowledgement. "Thanks, Jamal. I wasn't looking for an audience, but sometimes things happen that you can't control." If you like this story and want more powerful lessons like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss a new video. Also, drop a comment below. What's the toughest situation you've had to overcome? Share your story with us, and let's keep the conversation going. Remember, strength isn't just about what you can do physically, it's about how you carry yourself in every moment. Keep pushing and stay empowered.